Welcome, welcome back to another episode of the Lightdrop podcast, where it's just two friends talking creativity and beyond. And today, yet again, we have a great guest with us today. Much of the wisdom that I have, um, as it pertains to being a creative, like a creative professional, was passed down to me by our guest today. Incredibly intelligent, professional, talented, like a really just capital A CG artist, veteran CG artist, Ali Jamali, joining us on the show today. Ali, thank you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I definitely don't look at myself like that at all,
No,
but
dude.
I appreciate it. Hey, man, if the world believes it, I'll take it.
We'll believe it.
They'll believe it soon.
Yeah, we'll believe it. They're about to know about you. So, Ali, we're excited, of course, to have you here, man, and hearing all the good things that Jamil has said about you. And I look up to Jamil, and the fact that Jamil looks up to you makes me respect you even more. So, let us know, what's your artist journey? Like, how did you get to who you are now and getting into CG? Tell us about it.
So I had a journey that's different from a lot of people. I did not start off with a smooth sail. Like I was a college dropout. First of all, high school was just like we didn't take that shit seriously at all. Like
Yeah.
I barely made it out. I was like on the bottom list of my high school. Then I went to community college for a year, and then all through my life, I remember since my adolescence, I was always into creating stuff.
Mhm.
Always into creating stuff. It was woodworking, photos, drawing, and all of that. So that was always my passion. But like when I got into college, started community college, a year into it, I was majoring in graphic design. This is like 2000. This is 2000. And at that point, like 3D wasn't like what it is now. Like there wasn't much information about 3D. Like I'm from a generation where we got the first computers, like the home PC and the AOL, the first time people got internet, so like 3D was like so far fetched, like, hey, I don't even know anything about that. So my first year in college, Bergen Community College, great school, by the way, one of the best community colleges out there,
Shout out
actually.
community college.
But yeah, when I first got there, like I was doing graphic design and cool. I was working on like stuff. I mean, I always enjoyed creating stuff. Regardless, everything was good. But again, I didn't take it seriously. Dropped out. Then I went, started working, and I was working at this company for like 4 years, and the whole time I had this feeling in the pit of my stomach. It's like, oh man, like I'm missing out on something. And I look back and it's so crazy to think that I remember I was like, even as early as 22, when I was working in that company, I was like, oh, I'm too old to go back to school. One day I was talking to my coworker and she was asking me where we were from, my family, right? And I told her like, oh yeah, my family, we're from Pakistan. We're from like this small village. From a village so small, my mother didn't give birth to us in a hospital. Like my grandmother delivered us in the house, right? And like that's our humble beginnings. And we came here when I was 9. We moved to America, and I was telling her the story, and she was like, "Oh wow, so you really must take advantage of every opportunity that you have here." And like that was my turning point. And I was like, oh shit, I don't take advantage of any of those opportunities. I'm just coasting. I'm just doing my thing. I was working, I was working a dead end job. Most of the money that I got, like I was leasing a Lexus IS, you know, And I was just, that was my whole thing. I was like, most of the money I got, I was in car just driving around. I was thinking I was cool, like just getting by.
Hmm.
And when she said those words, I was like, yeah, I don't, so that triggered like this drive in me. It's like, okay, let me figure this out. Let me like, go and see what I can do. And I re-enrolled myself in college, and all my life I was like, oh, I'll just get by, right? Like, yeah,
Hmm.
whatever grades that I get, as long as I pass or whatever, it'd be fine. But then my mentality from that point on is like, okay, if I, no excuses whatsoever, I'm just gonna go all out, nothing but A's. I'm just gonna keep doing it. And I think from that point on, like I really like started to focus
Yeah.
and not take anything lightly. If I had any assignment, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna procrastinate. I'm gonna do this right now. If it was a quiz, I wasn't like, oh yeah, as long as I get a B or a C, I'll be fine. I'm like, no, I'm gonna go all out, nothing but A's. And I went from there. Like I went back to community college, and the interesting thing was they were like, oh, if you want to get back into the graphic design program, right, you have to retake some of these courses and
Damn.
you're going to lose some of your credits. But we do have this program for 3D animation that you can keep some of your credits that you already have.
Hmm.
I didn't know anything about 3D animation. And I was like, you know what? I just need to finish, get my associates. Let me just do this thing. And I went in that room, and Francis Schmidt was a professor who's still the professor there. And he's one of the people that like carved the path for me. Like he sowed this love for me, like for CG and stuff. And it was wonderful. Like I got in the first time I touched soft image, I was like, this thing is complicated as hell. Like to wrap yourself around, like that was the first time I was used to like drawing things and Photoshop. And the first time when you look at things in 3D space, I couldn't tell what the top, front, side views did. It was just like, um, but yeah, I mean, from that point on, and one thing led to another, and I eventually ended up at FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology in Manhattan. I
Hmm.
got my bachelor's from there, and yeah, and then just the
How
grind.
how old were you when you finished? You said FIT, like
Um, 27,
27. Okay. So you.
26 or 27. I went back to community college when I was, I think, 25.
Hmm.
And I still remember this moment where I was in one of the classes and this kid was in my class. He was like, "Hey, man, how old are you?" I was like, "I'm 25." I was like, "Damn, you're old, man. I didn't know you were that old." I was
Yeah.
like, "God, thanks for like, making me feel bad because I already thought that I was old, and now this kid is like, he was like probably like 19 or something like that. He was like,
Yeah.
damn, I don't
That's
know you were that
old.
old." Yeah. And now I'm
That-
44, and I'm
yeah.
like, shit, I'm 25, man. Come on.
Yeah. That's amazing. Ali, about me also. I was born in Kenya.
Oh, my
Never.
wife is from Kenya,
Oh, your wife is from Kenya.
Mombasa. No, she's
Hey.
not.
Okay.
Okay, let
Mombasa is
me
beautiful.
clarify. Let me clarify with a funny story.
Okay.
When I first met my wife, when I was at FIT, I told people my wife is from Kenya,
Hmm.
and everybody's like, "Oh my God, that's so cool." And then they met her, and they were like, "Oh, she's not black." They were so disappointed.
They don't know that there's.
They were so disappointed. They were like, "Oh, that's so cool. You married a Kenyan." And then they were like, "Ah, shit, she just looks like you, man. Come on." So her family, her family is Indian descendants. Like
Yeah.
yeah, they moved. They were born and raised in Kenya and stuff. But yeah, Mombasa. That's where she's from.
Mombasa. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
love Mombasa. What I was gonna ask. So, coming from humble beginnings, how did your parents like react to you saying like, okay, I want to go into like graphic design? Or because I feel like when you come from other places,
Yeah. Hmm.
your parents can be very, hard on you about whether you're
Yeah.
like, I want to do art, or I just want to do something that isn't, you know, the typical thing. Do they have like,
Not my parents. Not
no,
my parents.
not your
They
parents?
were
So,
they were like, okay, if that's
yeah.
what you want to do. Two reasons for it. Because I'm the second oldest child. My sister's older than me,
Hmm.
and she's always been the star of the family. So I think my parents were like, okay, we did right by one.
Yeah.
She got a full like scholarship to college. She graduated early from college, went to dental school in NYU. So she was doing great. They were like, okay, as long as we got one, and then it's me and my other two brothers, and
Yeah.
us three brothers. We were just out cutting school, going playing basketball. Like my parents were like, do something with your lives, just do anything. So, when I went back to school, I'm sure they were happy, that I was doing something instead of just getting by.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. My parents are also the same way. I'm the oldest, but both of my parents wanted to be artists. So when they
Ah,
came to the United States, and I was like, yeah, it also took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. But when I was like, oh, I want to be a graphic designer, they're just like, okay, as long as you want to do something, you know.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
no, shout out to parents who support you no matter what.
Oh, oh, yeah.
That's amazing.
100%. I think the immigrant family mentality. I mean, everybody knows this. Um, you know, every immigrant child knows this. You either become an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer.
Hmm.
Like those are the three big things, you know. And if you're not doing one of those, like you better be making a lot of money, because so nobody goes into our field saying that they want to become rich,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Nobody goes into the creative field saying that they want to become rich. It's just that's what fulfills us. If I wasn't doing this for a living, I'd still be doing this on a regular basis.
Hmm.
I'd still be creating something. So, in the grand scheme of things, we should be happy that we, in most cases, get paid to to do what we love.
Asterisk.
Most
So,
cases, yeah,
listen, I mentioned this in the intro, Ali, kind of like a lot of the wisdom that you had passed down to me. I didn't want to make the intro about me, but I just want to interject here and kind of say how um I kind of got that sense just organically from knowing you for as long as I've known you that y- that you got into this field really because it's like you just love doing this, but at the same time it's like that that appreciation that you have for it. Like I can see it every time you're on a job, every time you're working on your own personal projects. It's like you really kind of embody what I think is so important to get right like early.
yeah,
When you're getting into this field, is to kind of know really what it's about, like at the core of it. I definitely would call you, um, like a mentor that I've had
I
in my
appreciate.
career, because it's like you were you were the first person that I ever worked with. I met you on a job. I was about like 2 years
Yeah,
into my career. Like I had been working for about 2 years, and you were the first person that kind of took an interest in me to kind of. I think you saw a little bit of the same, right? That I see in you is like you were like, oh yeah, this person's really kind of like doing this for the right reasons,
yeah,
and he's looking for, I can see that he's trying this, he's trying that, but there's things that he doesn't know, and
yeah,
he's not gonna learn it, just just naturally, right? It's like let me really take this person under my wing and just show him the ropes in a very candid way. I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to kind of like I didn't want to put all this in the intro, but for anyone listening, like, truly like a lot of the kind of wisdom that I have as a professional, trickled down through Ali. So I'm excited to just hear more about your journey, your mentality, to see
Yeah.
like kind of where that came from, because that's rubbed off on me. And this this podcast, um, you know, this platform, right, is really like that's the core of it. So um yeah, man, that's I just want to interject.
And listen, I'm humbled by everything that you said. When I met you, my first impression, and don't forget our boy Angel, who was right
Yes,
there.
yes, and Angel was right there too. I hope Angel listens to this.
Yeah, yeah.
Angel Negron was saying right there with him.
Angel had the same mindset, like a thought. Like I was like, oh, this guy's the real deal. Like you know, you knew your shit. You were the real deal, and I knew when I found out more information, you were cutting yourself short. And I was like, yo, I didn't know you at that point, but I would have grabbed you by the collar, like, get your shit together, man. Like, you can't do this. Like, everybody needs to understand that we have the power, right?
Mhm.
The studios get the jobs, but we do the work. We do the hard work. We have that skill set. And I've seen this trend the last 15 years, at least when I was 16 years, I've been in this industry, where people think that they can either do our work or get our work done for cheaper, and um like what we do is easy. Like, we have a steep learning curve, you know like we have so much technical knowledge that takes years to amass. Years, like program specific knowledge and stuff, like how to approach a certain job or a technique and stuff like that. So listen, this is a broader conversation about where the industry's headed and how we should approach it as veteran artists, right? Like, how the mindset that we need to have, because things are changing. Things are changing fast. And my perspective, going back, right, when you were like, oh, I want to know what your perspective is. This is my perspective. I'm an immigrant. Coming, my father, I didn't have a hard life growing up. My father had a hard life growing up, right? My parents, they come from really humble beginnings. So what my like the mentality of immigrants, and Jeff, I think you'll relate to this, like,
Mhm.
is that, hold on, I'm going to America and they're gonna pay me to work. Like, they're actually gonna pay me money so I can have a better living than just put food on the table. You know what
Mhm.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's a mentality. And you get caught up with every job that you're ever on. There'll always be some people that will constantly complain. Like, ah, shit, why do I have to do this, man? This is not part of my job. Like, I don't want to deal with this bullshit. Like, they're not paying me enough for this. But if your mentality is like, oh, I'm actually getting paid to do something, and then in our industry, even go further on, I'm getting paid to do something that I love, right? And all I need to do is honor that commitment. If a company's paying me money, I honor it by giving back and working hard,
Yeah.
right? Being responsible. So that's always been my mentality. Like, if you're on a job, especially when I became freelance, I started freelancing in 2015, and the pay difference was so much between when I was staff to boom a month later when I was freelance. I was like, I'm a baller now. Shit, like, I was just throwing around money. Like, hey, who wants an Xbox? So when I started freelance, um, when you're staff, right?
Mhm.
Because I was staff for many years, right? When you're staff, it's just one after another. You get one job, it's the next job, boom, boom, boom. And yeah, you want to do a good job, you want to do, put all your effort into work, but it just becomes a grind over time. And then when freelance happened, every job that I get, I look at it as a notch on my belt. it's like, like I'm putting on a badge, boom, boom, boom. I'm just collecting badges everywhere. Every job that I get, every new studio that I get, every new big client that I get. Like, I'm proud. I'm excited. Like, I went from like being in a grind, just day by day, just working on jobs to like, oh shoot, like I get to do like I get to do something for Peloton, something for Microsoft, something for, you know, Walmart, whatever.
Kroger.
Kroger.
So Kroger, Kroger, yeah, Kroger. Even though that shit gives me nightmares, but yeah, Kroger. You know, so yeah, I think it's just the way you look at things, and people get lost. We all
Yeah.
get lost. I get lost too. We all get lost, but we need to have this broader scope of like, hey, would you rather be broke as fuck trying to fend for food, or you're in a situation where you get paid to do what you love?
Yeah.
Like, just
And I,
look at it that way.
yeah. And I think when you translate that mentality, like when you start with an appreciation for the industry that you're in, like you said, the industry that, you know, VFX, CG, even Jeff, graphic design, you know, things are changing across the board so fast with the new technology that's coming out. The state of the industry, right, is no secret. Um, it, when you start with this appreciation of the industry that you were in and that we're still in the way that you just described, Ali, it's like, okay, it's changing. So how can I like redirect that, but keep that and kind of like keep that for myself, right? I think that a lot of the discomfort and fear, even about the industry changing, obviously comes from the disruption to everyone's livelihoods, right?
Yeah,
But the actual creative aspect of it, all of these, like it really kind of feels like this renaissance, right, where it's like almost
yeah,
the wild west, where it's like, okay, well, what do I want to see? It's like no one necessarily knows what it's going to shift into, um
yeah,
how much client work is going to be there, or if AI is going to replace me. Like, no one has the answers, right? There's a lot of question marks, and I think that's, again, the disruption to livelihoods. That's where the fear comes from. But if you're just kind of um like the work itself, it's like there's so many kind of untapped opportunities that we can take control of, because like you said, we're we're still the artists with the skill sets that have
yeah,
been in this industry. Like, the industry runs on us.
yeah.
And so, sure, we've been dependent on the machine that it's been for a while to like to kind of fit and to do that work, but we're really at this point now where we can take control in a way that we haven't yet. I think it.
It's we're going through a change. Like, a lot of industries have gone through a change. Like,
Yeah.
from radio industry to the horse carriage industry to, like, elevator operators. Like,
Mhm.
all of those things are gone now, basically, right? Like, we've moved past, and something like that is brewing right now, right? And we
Yeah.
all need to figure out where we fit in. There's a great quote that I read in a book. It's like, people are trying to solve new world problems with old world solutions,
Yeah.
Mm.
you know, and we can't do that anymore. We need to find new world solutions for these problems, right? Structure is going to change, I think, like the client to artist, to vendor, like all of that structure is going to change out there. Companies out there is all about profits, right? The bottom line. And the profits always need to be bigger than the previous years, right?
It's a product. They've got a product.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like it's movies.
So they got offices in Paris, New York, Chicago, LA, all of that. But they're like, hey, where can we get it done the cheapest so we can keep the most profit, right? We as artists aren't concerned about the most profit. We want to be paid what we're worth, right? Deliver a great product. We just want to be paid what we're worth. And I think that in there's a lot of potential, right? There we need to figure out like, okay, instead of just being, and this is a hard thing with artists, with every artist is like, how do you become a businessman? How do you become a marketer? And this is why talented artists that I know, they just want to sit behind a computer and just do shit,
Yeah.
right? So they just work for clients. They just, agents would be like, hey, can you do this for us? Blah blah blah. I'll do it. But maybe if they stepped out of their comfort zone and pursued something else and said, hey, you know what? I am my own studio. I'm not just gonna work for you. I am my own studio. I can take on work. And we as a group can do so much between all of our connections and this and that. Like all the knowledge that we've amassed over the years, like put that together, help each other out, get clients on our own, and do amazing work, and then cut out all this overhead.
Yeah.
We don't need when you get up to a certain point in this industry, you don't need a producer to check up on you and make sure that you're doing work, right? You don't need a project manager. You don't need all of this fluff. You don't need a fucking fancy office with a kitchen that has Cheerios, that you can eat in the morning and like two
They got
breakfast bars.
every flavor. They got honey nut. They got
Yeah,
frosted. They got
yeah, yeah. So you don't need all of that. So I think it's everything's gonna start like condensing down. Like all of this fluff is gonna get taken out, and eventually, if you remove all the fluff, then what are you left with? You're left with artists that can actually do the work.
But here's the other side to it too. And I want to get your thoughts on this and your thoughts too, Jeff. Is like I think that that's the potential like X's and O's like business side of it, right? To like to start there to say, okay, um, like we can make our own stuff. We're the ones with the skills. We can make our own stuff. But then the question that I think is the biggest shift, right, is like, okay, well, what are we gonna make? Like, what's there to be made moving forward, right? Because when you kind of what's really interesting to me is how I'll see on LinkedIn or YouTube or whatever, I'll see posts about AI, like Midjourney and Runway and stuff like that. Sora. Like I'll see a post about something like that from someone who's not even in the industry, right? And it's just excitement in the comments. Like this is amazing. Like I can make this super easy. I could do this. It looks so good. Blah 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 blah. All I gotta do is right. There's excitement everywhere about that kind of stuff, except for obviously in our industry because
Yeah,
it's disruption to
yeah,
the to our livelihoods. And so it's like, okay, well, let's say there's no, let's say we say, okay, we're gonna make our own stuff. It's like, okay, well then what are we gonna make? What do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about actually like the type of things that we should kind of be um exploring and experimenting with starting with our own work, like taking kind of prioritizing our own satisfaction so we could transfer that to other people and then figure out how to make a living off of it
Yeah.
next, right?
So the thing that I'm most excited about getting other people to sort of see people who aren't in the industry is inviting them into like a personal experience. I mean, with all these, VR is obviously becoming big. AI, Midjourney, this world building aspect of it is kind of coming in. I'm excited about people who aren't, quote unquote artists being able to share their journeys, their backgrounds in a very unique and special way. Uh, and I think for the artists, that's kind of like an opportunity to hone in on ourselves, to kind of look back into who we are and the things that we value that aren't restricted by like what society deems as important, and just say like, I want to talk about my grandmother's story, or growing up in Kenya, or this one place that I went and that was super exciting, and put that and market that. And I I think a lot of it has to do with, as far as like making money, is that there's so many restrictions on um, you know the currency, whether you're living in a certain place, the transactional fees. Um, I believe like when money becomes more digitized, then this is going to be a different conversation. But right now, there's so many restrictions for that. So, but yeah, that's what I'm excited about. I want to see um, people share their experiences in a new way, and I believe that that can be a profitable thing in the future. So yeah.
Yeah. I think if you want to be honest, right, moving forward, like, although the only people that are going to survive are the people that love it. Simple as that. Uh, we've all come across people in the industry who just do this as a job, and there's a lot of people that they don't like it. They don't like it, so they're gonna start getting pushed out, right? The people that love it are gonna find a way to carve their own path, right? And it's gonna be tricky moving forward, because the hard truth is, what do you do moving forward? You do the same shit that's been done before in a new way, using new tools. Because as much as want to say like, oh, I'm gonna do it my way. If you want to make a living, you could do your my way, have fun, all of that. But if you want to make a living out of this, you're gonna do what the client wants you to do. You know, and a lot of times it's gonna be like, some bland stuff, you like always. But there will be times where you can inject some of your personality, your vision, your style into it. And that goes back to me saying how the artists have control. When you work at a studio or whatever, you're doing what they're telling you to do, right? And I mean, I know another topic that's all, that creates a lot of the problem in itself, because a lot of times, instead of you being efficient and getting work done, you're going through a hierarchy of people that want to pixel fuck and move things around, like, move the toilet this way, move it that, like that meme, like, move it back and forth. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a matter of just doing what we are always going to have clients that will want cool stuff to showcase their product, right? Cool
Yeah.
visual. All the people excited about. I mean, look, uh, AI is a disruptor. We have to be honest about that. But it's also a tool. Right. It's going to disrupt a lot of people, a lot of at the basic level. So a lot of people that are getting by doing grunt work and stuff like that, a lot of that is going to get taken away the same way that rotoscoping has been taken away the last 15 years. So
And now, and soon it's just prime. It's the kind of task that's prime to eventually just be like, click the rotoscope button,
yeah,
and
I mean,
it'll take care of it for you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. With AI, I mean, look, it's been around for a while, and now it's gotten better and better each year, right? Like, just AI enhanced rotoing. So a lot of things are going to be like that. But yeah, okay, fine. But now, what do you do as a creative when that job is taken away, right? Modeling, that gets taken away, right? Like, as a job, what do you do? Well, now you can utilize all of these tools, and when you needed like 10 people, now you need like one or two people,
Mhm.
to do the same work. And you can't blame the studios for taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
That's just nature of the beast. That's what we're dealing with, right? So
Yeah.
all these studios and clients, they're absolutely right. Like, oh, okay, so we're gonna save money on this, and also the globalization of the whole market. It's been down to the lowest bidder now. So we can't. I'm in the New York area. I can't compete with somebody in India, right? It's not even close. They're just going to do it for much cheaper. But the people that are going to survive are the ones that stand out and do a much better job. And it's not
Yeah.
for cheaper, do a much better job. And clients will always be around for those type of people.
Yeah. And it's good to point out too. It's like it's just like you said. That's all gonna stand true if like just everything keeps going as it has been. Client work and like studio kind of setup, and I think it will, of course, carry on in that way. But I also think that there's this feeling that opportunities are shrinking, but in reality, there's just gonna be. It's just like anything else, right? When anything else kind of got taken away with any other industry, it just creates new opportunities.
Yeah,
Ali, you shared a quote with me when we talked the other
yeah.
day that I think is a really good kind of like quote that kind of embodies all of this is like this power of just this creative artists power that like you said mentality is good to have. I'll read it, or if you want to read it, Ali, maybe
Well, I'll just preface this quote why it hit me so hard
yeah.
because um, I think I've always had this mentality of like like I said, I started college late, and I always thought like, oh man, I'm behind everybody else, and I'm not good enough. So every stage that I got into, I was like, I always had this thing like, I need to work harder to catch up, and I'm not good enough. And I always had this feeling where, um, you know how we call ourselves artists, like forever, like I would be like, oh, that's not for me to decide. Like I I it's not on me to call myself an artist, it's for other people to do that.
Mm.
I don't want to put that label on myself, right? Or I love photography and I would never call myself a photographer, right? I've had that mentality, and then when I read this quote, I was like, yeah, damn right. Like it's a quote. It's from a book, Light on the Landscape. It's a photography book by William Neal. It talked about like how to approach your work. Photography specific, but how to approach your work. And the quote was, he was quoting to another book, and the quote is, "To make art is to sing with the human voice. To do this, you must first learn that the only voice you need is a voice that you already have." Right,
Mm.
and that was powerful to me. All this time, I was looking for other people's approval, um, other people to put labels on me, and to say if I'm good enough or not. And I realized like, yeah, man, this is the only way. If I'm gonna take photos, like, I don't need to rely on other people to tell me if it's good enough or not. Like, it's good enough for me. This is my vision, right? How I see the world, and I'm gonna continue to pursue my art in a way where I can figure out how to fully express my vision, right? How I see the world. So it's my voice. It's the only voice that I have. So if I'm an artist, if I work on art, like, goddamn, I'm an artist, right? If I take photos and I like those photos, I'm a photographer, right? You can't take that from me. That's who I am. And if you don't think it's good enough, then too bad. Then do your own shit.
Exactly.
So so that's what I'm telling you. And but the book goes on. It's like it's good for each of us to remember that that great art is made from the heart and soul of the artist, and not to gain approval from others.
Mm.
And for so long, I've been like trying to gain approval. And as a professional in this industry, that's your job. You're trying to gain approval from the art director, from the creative director, from the client. Is it good enough? Right? That's part of our job. Fine. Everybody's gonna have something to say, but you're constantly trying to like win the approval. Is it good enough? Is it approved or whatever? But at the end of the day, we need to realize like, hey, if you love doing this, like that's it. Your voice is good enough. Do it.
Yeah, man. Like you said, when you shared that quote with me, I said the same thing. I was like, hell yeah. That's,
Yeah.
if you're an artist in this industry, CG industry, VFX, and you felt this disruption, um, I think that that's a great quote to kind of like give yourself that green light again to,
Yeah. For me, it takes a burden off of me. Like, I can only do something if I reach a certain level. Like, no, your level is wherever you're at, comfortable sharing right now. And go out there and just make shit. Like, to me, it's like the purpose of life. What is the purpose of life? And it's the same thing as the purpose of art. It's like go out and make footprints. You know, you're not gonna do anything by idling around and just thinking about what to do. Just go out there and just make footprints. You know.
Dang. Hitting this with the quotes. I love that. Go out in the world and make footprints.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
think about it.
I think that's what it. How else is after you gone? Like people are gonna know where you've been. You
Mm.
know, like it's not about like making the greatest thing ever or making the worst thing ever. It's what history do you have? And if you just keep that in mind, then everything becomes simple. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna put shit out. As an artist, I'm gonna put stuff out there. And for so many years, I was afraid of like sharing my stuff. Oh, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. No.
and not only that, but we call ourselves 3D artists, and so we even within that framework, it's easy to put that restriction on yourself because it's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, well, I want to write, I got this idea of a poem or something,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I can't put that on my demo reel. That's not going to get me any right. And so
Mhm.
and so we like limit ourselves. I watched, I've seen like lawyers and stuff. They'll feel like they would much rather be painting, dancing, right? They're in courtrooms, but it's like they didn't follow their passion. And then it's like it's funny how we can be in dailies, you know, working with art directors and still feel, damn, I wish I had let myself, do some photography last weekend or and it's like we're right there, but also we still manage to keep ourselves far from it. And
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, well, now that I don't even have the opportunity to go to dailies because there's no work coming out. And it's like, you know, I can't get any of that back all the time that I let. So it's and I think me and you, Ali, as freelancers, like I've never even been staff before. I've always
Really.
been I've always been freelance. So it's so I I th- I kind of have always definitely felt like, oh, it's not for everyone. This like freelance, like I get it that meant that comfort of being staff, but then I always just like after having been freelance, it's like that it's just this constant, okay, like you said, this notch on my belt, this
Yeah.
next project, this next
Yeah.
gig, and it's no different where it's like, okay, you do the same thing with your own work.
I freelancing is definitely not for everybody.
Mm,
It's a grind. It's a grind, but when it goes well, it's the best thing in the world.
mm,
Um, Freelancing literally changed my life. It changed my life for the positive. Like all of a sudden, it afforded me a lifestyle that I didn't have before. Gave me the freedom. And um, a friend recently told me it's like with all the pitfalls of freelancing, it's one way where you can dictate your worth, not a company.
Mhm.
So if you want to go in as a senior artist, and that's how you want to sell yourself and that's what you want to charge, if a company sees that in you, they'll pay you for that role. No, you're not locked in to like, oh, I'm a junior artist or whatever, right? Like you, but it's when it's not going well, it's tough. And I also want to talk about like there's a lot of turmoil in our industry with the strike, uh, with the economic downturn and all of this stuff, like with all of these streaming services. Last year has been the roughest year for most people in this industry. For most people in the industry, this past year has been incredibly rough, and we all need to vocalize that. Like, hey, I had a hard time. We've all done this, constantly refreshing our emails or just waiting by the desk, waiting for a client or a job to come in and this and that. Like, it's been hard, and like we all need to vocalize, like, hey, we've all been there. You're not the only one.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
I'm I'm curious, Jeff, because uh we've been basing this whole thing around like 3D VFX industry, but I'm curious to like hear
Mhm.
your perspective kind of like on the I mean, you're right there parallel in
Yeah.
graphic design and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think um, graphic design is, I think it's a very like flexible industry, I would say, because it's like if you're a graphic designer, you can kind of move around, and it's kind of like this like generic title. It kind of gets made fun of a lot because it's like, oh, my cousin's a graphic designer, like
Yeah.
my mom's a graphic designer. Everyone knows how to do it. But I think the lessons that I've been learning from all of our conversations, this conversation, is the importance of having like a unique voice, the importance of like protecting that and being in tune with myself to where like eventually I'd like to just fully go into freelancing. But I don't think I can get there if I don't know myself personally. So yeah, it's definitely been something I've been thinking about because with what happened with the strikes, um, the graphic design industry, I believe, is I, I don't think it's been facing obviously the same um, like the same difficulties because it's not as
Yeah.
like like one freelancer can do a lot for a
Yeah.
company as far as like their capabilities. It doesn't take as much, um, but I still think that um, it's difficult to to get companies to respect you and to pay you what you're worth because they're like, oh, this takes a little bit of time, or you shouldn't be spending this much time. So um, I think my goal now is to fully like develop as my into myself as a person, so that when I'm trying to get some client work, I'm confident in who I am and my abilities. Um, and I think that has a lot to do more with like my self confidence and less to do with my artistic capabilities. Because my technical abilities, honestly, since high school, I mean, maybe I've watched a few more tutorials or something and learned a little bit. Even going to SCAD, you learn a little bit more, but the biggest thing that has actually helped me out is my self confidence,
Yeah.
because then I can actually, I don't feel bad if I get a bad critique from a creative director or something. I'm able to just push through it, and yeah, I think that's been my lessons from all this is that um, how much you believe in yourself is so important, uh, and if if you don't have that foundation or even a way to realign yourself with your values as you're going through this like creative world, and now that it's changing so much, everyone has their input. Everyone feels like, oh, I can make something in Mid Journey, or I can make a logo in this.
Yeah.
Why can't you do it in 10
Yeah.
minutes? So it's like, if now that I can tell people like, oh, I do it oh, I charge this much because I'm able to do these things. I'm able to break down this problem, and this is how it aligns with your business values and your mission and everything. And that comes from my self confidence. So yeah, that's what I've been learning from all these conversations. Is like it doesn't matter if I'm technically good. Do I believe in myself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, man, self confidence is only going to come from you. Don't wait for it, right? You just at a certain point, you got to say, yeah, you know what? I'm good enough.
Yeah.
There will always be people better than you, always be people worse than you. But, always. So you can't go by that. So you just got to decide, okay, I'm good enough, and I'm going to move forward with
Yeah.
that mentality.
And I was gonna say, Ali, I think I believe you also like sub helped me get into my career, like almost in a. So the story of this is, so when I was living in Savannah, Jamil and I started talking a lot more consistently, and I was freelancing, but I wasn't able to find like big work or anything. I was kind of just
Yeah.
getting by. I think I was also serving at a restaurant, and Jamil would call me and we would just have these long conversations, and I would tell him like, oh man, I'm trying to find work, but no one is no one is hitting me up. And obviously living in Savannah, Georgia, it's very small.
Yeah.
And Jamil would tell me about working in New York and then meeting other people and then them telling him that, you can charge more money. You just have to do it. And obviously when you're not charging anything, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't even have like the baseline. It's like, what do you mean? You want me to start believing in myself in that way? But Jamil was very adamant about like just telling yourself like I'm capable of doing this. And then eventually I just kept on doing it, started getting more clients. I only had like not clients, I had one person who was paying me consistently.
Yeah.
But I had this like self-belief in myself. And I think it started from, like people like you, is people who mentored him, and how he was able to pass that self confidence onto
Yeah.
me, and then I was able to leave Savannah, move to Texas for a little bit, and then come back to Atlanta, and then now I'm making more money than I've ever made, and it
Wonderful.
started from that self belief. So shout out to you. Shout out. I don't know what you told Jamil to get him to believe in
I,
himself.
I don't know either, but I believed in Jamel when I first saw him. Unlike other freelancers, because it can also get competitive, and it can get territorial, and people want to protect their position. And I'm like, hey man, if he eats, I eat, one way or another,
Yeah.
So if Jamel makes it, and he starts getting clients and bookings and stuff like that, great. I'm happy for him. But I know that if I'm good to him, sooner or later he's gonna be good to me. You know.
Yeah.
And the top freelancers in this industry, that's how they operate. That's how they operate. I mean, there are people that help me so much in this industry.
It's that mentality of knowing that it's like the opportunity that someone else gets is an opportunity that's taken from you. It's like opportunities are just going to keep kind of growing with the with the people that are there for them. We talked about this before. Artists really are just inclined to help other artists, and
Yeah.
and those are the best ones to work with, the best, are also the best artists,
Yeah.
too. It's like
Yeah.
it goes beyond just your ability to get the job done. It's like, all of it is
Yeah.
your footprint. It is a work of art, right? The way you speak to people, the way if you finish the job and you raise that client's like bar of like, oh man, I haven't had a freelancer like Ali before, and now that I have, it's like I can't.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting compared to Ali now from their perspective. Like that's a work of art because you didn't just leave them with the end product. It's like the communication, the
Hundred
smile, right?
percent.
It's
100%. And that's what I wanted to say that, like, if there was any advice to younger freelancers, right? Like, it's not just your ability, like you said, 100%. It's not just your ability to create. yes, you will find work, but you find a lot more work. You'll be way more successful if the person sitting next to you, your peer, you help them out and they enjoy working with you and they trust you and they feel like you got their back, right? And even the producer, where they know, like, hey, if I'm in a pinch, he's gonna help out. Dime, value my time, but I'm also not gonna nickel and dime for every little thing. There's been an artist that I know, it's like, yeah, I charge OT after 7 p.m. Understandably, that rubs people the wrong way. Like, it has to be a great balance. Like, and I've talked about this with you, talked about this with like plenty of other artists. You have to value your time. You can't be one of those people, like as a freelancer, as an artist. It's like this industry is toxic. The roots of this industry is toxic. It's basically like, a lot of people will tell you, the old school has like, oh, if you're not working till 9, 10 p.m., you're not
Yeah.
really working. You know
Mhm.
what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
But that's where this change needs to happen. And I've been very vocal about this. A studio is going to take your time. If you give it to them, they'll take it, right? You can't blame them for taking it, but you have to tell them, like, hey, look, my regular hours are 10 to 7. If there's going to be more OT, if there's more work than anticipated, then I'm going to have to start charging OT for that. So they
Yeah.
know, like, okay, you're not some insecure little artist that's just going to be pushed around and doing anything, like you have to
It's not.
value yourself before they value you.
Yeah, and it's not even like, and like 9 times out of 10, it's not even like this malicious taking advantage of, like you said,
Yes.
where they're like, it's more so just like, oh, they're okay with it, right? It's like, oh,
Yes.
they don't mind, just because it's like, oh man, can you, I just need you to take care, like put this on the farm. I came a little bit late, but we need it on the farm for tomorrow. So you end up staying until 45 minutes later, right? But you don't say anything, you don't kind of, so it's like, oh, okay, they were cool with it. And
Yeah.
so that kind of adds up. So it's not even always this uh like deliberate kind of malicious taking advantage of. It's just you didn't respect your time, so they didn't either. But it's like, if you are vocal about that, hey, you know I took, you even after the fact, hey, I took care of that, but if this keeps going, I'm gonna
Yes.
have to start, charging, like just stuff like that. And that comes down to like confidence, practice, your voice, your self-confidence. Yeah, that's, stuff that we've talked about on this podcast before.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
and
look at it as an old guy. I
mhm,
owe it to all the young artists. I owe it to them. Because
mhm,
if I'm pulling this shit where I'm continuously working OT without mentioning it to anybody or whatever, then I'm setting a horrible precedent for everybody else, right? I urge, like, every artist, but especially the senior artists, like, hey, like, set some standards for this industry. We're not like a bunch of amateurs on the assembly line, putting pieces together on a part. Like, we have a talent, right? Let's respect ourselves so the studios respect us. And the good studios know about that. They know about this. They know, like, hey, we're gonna try not to work OT, but if it gets out of hand, or if it becomes a lot, let us know, right? There are a lot of studios that will not do that at all. There are a lot of studios that will just message you at 9 p.m. Be like, and like it's like the middle of the afternoon, and
yeah,
we've both been there. We've both
yeah,
been there. Like,
Yeah.
that shit never ends. It's like, oh yeah, can we take care of this and that? But nobody speaks up, so they
yeah,
keep pushing it. You know, you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And when it comes to bottom line, they're doing their job. You can't blame them, but blame yourself for setting that bad precedent.
Oh, man.
hey, I think, thank yay, listen. you're listening to this episode and you're trying to get into freelance, this is gold, gold here. Um,
Yeah.
I've been wanting to ask you, Ali, because like over the past few minutes, I kind of bookmarked in my head. Jeff, you were talking about like, I mean, even just the conversation we just had about time, um, and how Ali, you said how if you weren't doing this, CG, you still would be doing CG. But I'm also still curious to kind of hear like, um, just for your like mentals, right? Like, what do you kind of do when you want to step away for a little bit, like to just kind of like clear your space? Like, what's your? I know we kind of talked on the side before. You told me that you're into like backpacking, outdoorsy kind of stuff. Like, what's tell me about that, that side of Ali. I'm curious to hear like what you kind
Yeah,
of do to take care of your mental space, clear your head in that way.
yeah. Number one thing is a consistent workout regimen. I've implemented that since COVID. Uh, it's just I know that when I do the hardest thing possible in the morning, everything else becomes easier. And this things can get stressful, right? With any job, it gets very stressful. But I know that if I put my time in working out for like an hour or something in the morning, that's helping me mentally and physically. And I've seen those changes. Like I've had a lot of weight lifted off my shoulder. And don't get me twisted. There's always times, especially the last few years, there have been times where I've been like super stressed out, right? I keep saying it. I want everybody to know, even like, especially the young people, like, it's okay. It's okay to suffer through it's okay to have a hard time. It's okay to be stressed out. It's okay if you're struggling right now. It's okay if you don't have work right now, right? Like, things will get better. I look at the hardship as sort of like not a blessing, but I embrace it. If this
Yeah,
is what makes you better. If everything was going smoothly, right, it would get better.
yeah,
So like embrace it. Take advantage of this.
I love that.
So
I think about working out the same way, that way. Last, let's see, what, like three, since June 1st, I committed to working out
yeah,
five times a week.
yeah,
Um, and I always like how it reminds me that there are more important things than client work or
yeah,
design work, because I'm like, if I when I'm struggling to do a push up, I'm like I'm finishing it up, or I'm just starting because I'm tired. Um, like there's nothing harder than, like, all I want to do is breathe at that point. I don't
yeah,
care about what's going on in the world. I don't It
yeah,
doesn't even matter. And I really like that for that hour, this is the hardest thing that I will do today. And
yeah.
I can't even think about anything else. So I definitely second that. Like,
And I mean, if you do it in the morning, you know, then it's like for me, it's like by the time I go to sleep and I'm like, oh man, I was sitting in my computer for 12 hours straight. But then I realized like, oh shit, I actually did something that helped my body and my mind in the morning, you
mhm.
know?
I
And
need to
like
get
that
back on
washes
that.
away that whole like this is an unhealthy life sitting in front of a computer for 10, 12 hours a day. This is like the worst thing that you could do to your body. So I think it's so important, that like especially the people that sit on the computer all day, like just go out and be active for a little bit.
And I think that that's what's cool about it too, is like if you frame your exercise as like as preparation for something, whether it's like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this marathon, or I want to do this, 2K, whatever, 5K, or this
Yeah,
hike. Um, then it's like when you do that thing, right? When you do that hike or you do that marathon or whatever, it's like it's not like you just got dropped into this physically demanding situation.
yeah,
It's like, no, it's like I trained, like I prepared for this. Like I trained
yeah,
for, like, this is tough, but
yeah,
I prepared for this. And for it to just be this kind of physical thing first, then it's like, that definitely translates to, to mental
yeah,
stuff, right? So
yeah.
it's
And right now I've been learning C# for a while, right? Like I wanna get into more like game development and VR development and all of that. This is back end stuff. So now my thing is um I I just do a little bit every day. I don't try to do a lot. I don't try to wear myself out. I don't try to learn the whole language or everything at once. I'm like, what can I do a little bit every day? Right? There's this great book that I read. Oh man, I highly recommend. Atomic Habits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Atomic Habits. So when you read that book, a lot of it seems obvious where you're like, oh yeah, blah blah blah. But there's things in that book, like words that you read and reaffirms like, and it's all about like, hey, if you're gonna do something hard, right? Don't don't stress out over it. First, you start at the most basic level. If you're gonna say that you're gonna start working out every day, instead of actually working out, why don't you just put on your shoes that you use to work out?
Mm.
Put your shoes on. Maybe for the first few days, just put your shoes on and don't do anything. And then maybe you want to just do it for a minute. Can you do something for a minute? Right? Just do that for a little while. And that's how you build up. You don't have to go to 0 to 100. I don't have to learn C# within the next month. My mentality for everything is the long term. Is the
Yeah,
long term. You know. So I'm
and
like,
that's
I don't
big.
have to do anything right now. Next 2 3 years, let's see where I get.
Yeah, that's a big point to make too, because that's only getting harder and harder for people, especially like coming out of school. It's like there's this attention span shortage that's just getting shorter and shorter, and it's like everybody not only wants stuff to happen quickly, but we think that it needs to. Like we
Yeah,
genuinely think that like, oh, like if I don't get this done, in whatever the time frame, a week or 2 months, if I don't lose this weight in four, I didn't do it right, or and it's like no, there's the you know there's this idea of like, oh, I should be here by the time I'm 20, I should be here by the time I'm 30, I should be here by the time, and it's as long as you, like you said, have that long mentality of like, I just want to keep getting better, right? Like I don't
yeah,
want to feel like I've reached my best when
yeah,
I'm 25, right? Because then it's like, okay, well, you just keep thinking that long game, um, and it's freeing that way because now all of a sudden it doesn't feel like you have to like get it right, or, the first
yeah,
time, or so it's just like I'm just doing this.
yeah, yeah. You're not carrying this heavy load on your shoulders. You're like, okay, just a little bit. Take it easy on yourself.
There's way less, people use that word like sacrifices too, and like, oh, I gotta, in order for me to get here by this amount of time, then I gotta give this up. Also, it's like if your mentality is like you said, oh, just a little bit, then you don't have to really, there's no like, you can still spend time on the weekend doing something you love, and like you'll get to the C# like you said,
Yeah,
tomorrow, right? It's like you don't
yeah.
need to feel like you need to like give all these things up to like condense this stuff into this short amount of time.
Now, if you say you don't have to be as a hard worker every single day. There will be days where you're just down. There'll be days where you're not productive. There'll be days where you just don't want to do anything. It's okay. Cut yourself some slack and then just get back on it. And get back on it. You don't have to do a lot. You don't have to make up for everything that you didn't do the last few days. Just do a little bit.
I love that.
So,
I think that's a good way to segment towards closing. And Ali, we really appreciate you, because just hearing your story from when you were 22 and you decided you're like, I'm gonna change my life, and you just something just clicked for you. It's very inspiring because it kind of feels um, it. I think it inspires me the most because it feels like there's never. It's like it's never too late, and there's so much that can be done by just believing something different.
yeah.
So
Something
definitely,
a different way.
yeah, definitely think about things differently, a different way. And I want to ask Ali if any of our listeners want to come up and either talk to you, or I know we're gonna drop your website on the show notes. Would LinkedIn be the best way, or is there a different way that people, younger
Uh,
artists, or if you're like, don't talk to me?
hey, listen, Jamil will tell you I am open and ready to talk to anybody if they want advice or anything. To learn anything that I can offer anybody, hey, I'm more than willing. More than willing. Reach me out on LinkedIn, right?
Okay.
Reach me out on LinkedIn, hit me up. We can find other ways to chat or whatever. But yeah, man, I mean, I take it on as a mission. Like, if I can help, especially young artists, just help them out a little bit, just whatever advice, because things that seem like obvious to me or common sense to me, like, are not to a lot of people starting out in this industry. So yeah, I mean, if anybody wants any help, just hit me up.
Yeah, yeah.
Appreciate you, Ali. Like I said, man, I mean, I was really thinking about it a couple days ago. I was like, yeah, man, like Ali is someone who I would call, one of my mentors, somebody who's really mentored me, and and in such an organic, like genuine, way that really did a lot. I mean, seriously, man, it really did so much. For my career and for my confidence, starting from when we met. That was a big turning point in my career for sure. And I kind of look back on that as like, that's again, I'm feeling the same way now that I've had success in this industry. It's like I want to be able to pass that down to juniors and other artists as well. So appreciate you, Ali.
Yeah,
Appreciate you,
man.
man.
Yeah.
And that's a pod, y'all.
That's the pod.